You're listening to Simon Scriver's amazingly ultimate fundraising superstar podcast, talking all things fundraising, charities, nonprofits, and more. Here's your host, as always, Simon Scriver.
Welcome to another episode, and with me today I have returning the wonderful Joe Jenkins and Nikki Bell. Welcome back, guys. How are you?
Delighted to be back, Simon. Thank you. I was a bit worried whether I'd get another invite or not, so thank you.
Yeah, long time no see. And Nikki, how are you?
I'm great, Simon. Thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. You know me, the usual. So Nikki is a consultant at Key to Consulting. She has a strong background with various nonprofits, and she knows her stuff. And Joe Jenkins is, I need to get this job title right again. He's with the Children's Society, and he has a wonderful job title, Director of Supporter Impact and Income. Is that correct?
Thank you.
Supporter Impact. I love that. And I invited the two of these people back onto the podcast because they did so well last time. But also, I know they are both very passionate about talent in our sector, about training people up, about supporting people. I know you guys both mentor and look after and kind of upskill people to become better fundraisers. And so you have opinions about this. And I suppose it was sparked by Joe. You wrote an article recently for Third Sector with the headline, "Sorry, but charities have to face up to the talent crisis," which sparked a few strong opinions off the back of it. But do you want to maybe give us a too long, didn't read version of this? Why have we got a talent crisis?
Yeah, sure. And I mean, I thought quite carefully before publishing that, and it's been something that's been on my mind for a few years. And I wanted to be careful that this wasn't just a narrow view of the sector, but something that was true that was true more broadly. And so I've had lots of conversations with other peers in the sector and people in lots of different roles, and it's become really, really clear to me that we have a real problem. And the problem is that we don't have enough, we don't have the people we need to get the job done. And that's a concern, not just for what we need to do today, but looking into the future and how we're going to be relevant in that future to make a difference to the problems of the world that we care about. We need to have as many of the best people as possible, and I don't feel that we're going about that in the best possible way. So the headline, when I talk about talent crisis, I mean that we are struggling as a sector to both attract, develop and retain the talent that we need in order to solve the solutions that we've been set up to tackle. And I think that there isn't any one single reason why that is. I think it's a whole collective range of problems from pay, which we talked about a little bit on the last podcast, to a lack of diversity and inclusion in our organizations. And fundamentally, when you break it all down, it's a failure of leadership. It's a failure of our boards, it's a failure of our executives, and it's a failure of us in creating an environment in which we can genuinely attract and retain and develop and invest in the very best people who are going to help us to solve the world's problems.
I mean, you're obviously in a role where you're recruiting staff, where you're seeing this. You're seeing it in a very practical level, I suppose. Sometimes in terms of finding new talent, in terms of supporting those talent. What are you doing to change it? And not to sound, I don't mean to sound cheeky, but what are you are one of those leaders. So what are you doing to change it on a practical level?
You mean aside from writing amazing articles? So when I arrived at the Children's Society in 2016, that's where we started to look at our model of change. So how are we going to make the biggest difference we can in children's lives? And that included looking differently at our fundraising, and it also included looking differently at the way we provide support to young people and campaign on their behalf. And we recognized that we were going to need to change our whole business model if we were going to be able to make the kind of difference we need to, because children's lives are getting harder, not easier. And particularly in the context of a sector that's being heavily disrupted on every front. Again, we've talked about regulation and legislation, but also technology and demographic changes all mean that we're in a very different operating environment. And so we've been looking at our strategy differently. We've been looking at all of our systems and processes. But what we've recognised is that at the heart of all that is people. How we enable our people to be able to deliver a different kind of way of changing children's lives. And so we've been investing quite a lot in talent programs, staff development programs that have been looking at going above and beyond just sending people to amazing conferences like the Institute of Fundraising National Conference, which you should definitely go. But above and beyond training, actually, it's about providing people different kinds of opportunities to bring their whole self to work and be able to realise their full potential. And we're on a journey. I wouldn't say we're all the way there yet, but it's required a real commitment from trustees and executive team down to invest in our people as a priority, not just an afterthought.
Is this something you have to sell to your trustees? Is this something you're kind of managing upwards a little bit? I know you have to be careful what you say, but
our trustees are amazing, obviously. And actually, over the last few years, we've been bringing some new trustees into the board who bring different kind of backgrounds and perspectives that's really kind of strengthening our leadership. And that includes people with really strong organisational development, HR backgrounds from both the commercial as well as the charity sector. It includes people from Google, from Microsoft, who have got really great experience in sectors that are gripping the talent challenge and investing in it. And that provides a lot of support for us to adopt similar kind of methodologies.
It's interesting. Nikki, you're kind of coming at it maybe from the other angle in that you are the talent. You've just won the Social CEO's Rising Star. You won an award at the British Heart Foundation this year, and you're significantly younger than me and Joe. How do you feel about it as the talent? Are you getting the nurturing you need from organizations you work for, or what's it like from your perspective?
Yes, I mean, during my time at the British Heart Foundation, I was massively supported. I think in terms of an organisation that really invests in its staff and wants to see them succeed, they are absolutely up there with the best. And I think in terms of my own drive and what I want to see myself achieve, then I've got that as well. But for me, I'm limited in my options. You know, I want to do all of that stuff that Joe said, but in terms of progression and in terms of giving that talent to an organisation, I'm limited to what's around me geographically, which is in the northeast of England, because I haven't got the option to move to where the action's happening. I have a family, so I have a young son. So for me, leaving the northeast isn't an option. So that's why through consultancy, I hope to be able to give that talent to those organizations without having them to make that commitment of, you know, hiring someone full time that isn't able to come into the office all of the time, but me making that commitment to go the other way. And I know from other fundraisers that I deal with, so I'm on the Northeast Institute of Fundraising Committee, and obviously I do a lot on social media, and I just put the feelers out there to find out what their barriers were for not being able to give their all. And again, the location and the money to be able to go on that training and attend that training came up there as the highest reasons as why. So for me, it's and it's not a case of, you know, London and everywhere else. It's how can we approach this as a collective and just make sure that everyone's talent is noticed and appreciated and nurtured across the country. So, for example, the 25 under 35 was released this week through civil society, and I was really excited in there to see a northern person. So Emily Casson was featured, and there was 3 people outside of London who I think, you know, my mum's from London and she would class Birmingham as north, but for me, you know, we're like way up there, it's not north. And so there was 3 outside of London, but there was no Scottish people in there. And I personally know amazing, talented Scottish fundraisers that would love to be able to give their all to organisations, but they're limited to fixed term contracts, or, you know, organisations that are around of which there aren't many roles going because they're small teams. So what can we do for this together to make sure that that talent is featured in these ways and being able to give it to organisations? And I don't have the answers to that. I think it's great that we're having the conversation around it. And I have a lot of respect for the work that Joe's doing at the Children's Society. I'm a huge fan of him and the organisation. And I think it's those sorts of like organisations that need to be that voice and push it forward so that it can be a topic of conversation moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, you feel like the talent is maybe there, it's just not being accessed, or it's just kind of being restricted a little bit?
I think The majority of the roles for organizations where you can, you know that you can have a huge impact and where you can make a huge difference. Yes, you do tend to see that it's London based. The amount of times that I've seen a job and read the description and thought, oh, that is perfect for me, and then the location is London, and then instantly I'm like, oh, I can't do that. And for example, the British Heart Foundation recently had a social media role for community fundraising, but it was based in London, and I was like, why does that have to be there? It's a digital role, it's doing community, which is regional. I'd love to know the reasons as to why that is, because it could help with the diversity issue and conversation that we're having. Because if we can proactively go out to people and say, here are these roles where you can have a huge impact, this is for you, you're included in this, then hopefully we can bring more people into the sector that see themselves as professional fundraisers and will then want to invest their time and their talent to have an impact for these organizations.
The location thing is interesting, but also what you're saying there about the affordability or the access to income, access to money for this training is an interesting one. When you talked about the Northeast conference, I spoke at that Northeast conference, and we did a thing with small organizations. And in the room, it was almost all consultants, because consultants were the ones who could afford to come there. And the handful of small charities that were there were ones who had gotten bursaries, or we're relying on bursaries. It's a couple of £100 to attend one of these training sessions. And so sometimes the talent don't even get through the door because they've chosen or they've started working in an organization that can't afford to send them to these.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, we purposefully priced our conference so that it would be accessible, but we found that even the £200 mark for the 2 days was difficult. And a lot of these organizations, there might be one fundraiser, so 2 days away from the office is too much to ask. So now we're looking at that and right, what can we do next year to make it more accessible for everybody? But there was a fundraiser on the Community SIG Facebook group who I was talking to last night about this very topic. And I asked her, what for you is the barrier, and even the times, because getting into the city to attend this training, the train prices are more expensive. So there's all of these things to factor in. So I think the talent is there, but I mean, there are like amazingly talented people. I could reel loads off, and there's a few, unfortunately, that have left the sector because of these, accessibility issues.
Yeah.
And I think it's, there's amazingly talented people, but do we need to go out there and find them? Because they might be working for the smaller organizations. Because I only started to get more exposure when I worked for the British Heart Foundation, but I was still doing an amazing job at my previous role for a local hospice. Because
it was national? Is that what you mean? Because it was national?
Yeah,
You started to get next?
People are interested in what a large organization is doing. So I think, that played a huge part in it, because all of the stuff that I'm doing now, I've been doing for the past 8 years. But as soon as I started working for the British Heart Foundation, that's when I started to see the interest in what I was doing really take off amongst the sector. So what can we do to find those people beforehand and bring them in and really help them and support them to get to that point where they feel like, yes, actually a career in fundraising is for me. And myself and Joe are part of IOF. So
yeah,
we can definitely have a positive impact here. Would you agree, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a role for the sector bodies to be continuing to invest and create more opportunities for talent development in the sector. And I know the Institute of Fundraising has got this in mind, and I'm sure there's always more that can be done. I guess my kind of reflection is as much that I think there are talented people in the sector who are not getting the opportunities they need to really realise their potential. So I certainly wasn't making a point that there isn't any talent in the sector, and I'm surrounded in my own team with lots of really talented people, so I see that every day. But do we see the progression and development and investment that we need? And I think there's a particular deficit on charity boards and executive teams, and part of that is the diversity challenge. We've got far too many white guys leading organisations, but I also see it reflected in the decisions that are being taken. So the slow pace of change in our sector at a time where there is such rapid disruption, I think is problematic, and it's why I think it is a crisis. Because if we're going to be able to respond to the change that's required, we need strong leadership at every level. And if we don't have the talented leadership to make that happen, and we do in pockets, but not at the level and at the scale that's needed, I think the future of our sector is really in a difficult position.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think actually talking about it and starting that conversation is a first step from moving away or opening up beyond those stale, pale, male, and in my case, frail people, and actually trying to bring in more people, because then we get more voices and more talent rising to the top, hopefully. Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see, like you said, you're both on the IOF convention board. I'm interested to see how you guys kind of bring new people into the door who maybe couldn't access it before. I don't know if that's possible when you still have to pay the bills.
You mean to join us at convention?
Yeah. I mean that's always a challenge I find with these events, is trying to get people who maybe want to go but can't go because, like we said, the cost or taking the time out of that.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a live conversation we've been having at the IOF, and recognizing that no one event can do all things for all people. So it's about how do we make sure that the collective offer is available to meet the different needs of people at different stages of their career in different size organizations at different times. And so that we have a national convention, we have regional conventions, we have special interest groups, and increasingly we have online forums. And I think being able to make sure that when you put it all together, it's more than it's some of its parts, and there are routes and pathways at whatever stage, in whatever role, in whatever organization, to be able to find professional support, professional contacts and networks, and development opportunities is going to be the answer. I don't think the national convention can do all of it, and shouldn't try. It needs to offer the best that it can as part of a bigger mix of opportunities.
That's fair. I was being harsh.
And there are ways as well. I mean, in my previous role, we didn't have much of a training budget, and I volunteered. So I started my IOF convention journey as a volunteer 5 years ago, I think it was, and it's built up from there. So there are ways to be involved, and putting your ideas forward as well. So this year we had the option for people to put forward their case studies. So if they had an idea and they wanted to form that into a session, then we would help them with that. So there are ways to get involved that way. And I know other organizations and training programs do offer a volunteer option as well. So I think fundraisers also need to be proactive in seeking out what's right for them and what's going to help them to achieve their goals as well, because there are people there that will support them along the way, like us. We're always happy to answer questions and help people along, and it's just about accessing your networks and looking for what's right for you and what can work for you.
Yeah, volunteering at convention, it's a great way to get started in there if you feel you don't have the budget, or if you're struggling to justify it to your employer to go. It's a great way to go for free and actually get almost all the same benefits as an attendee.
Yeah, I mean, I love being a volunteer, because you instantly had this crew of other volunteers who were instantly 26 other fundraising friends and connections that you'd made, who were all in the same boat. You got to go to the sessions. It's a fantastic way to give back and scope it out. And then because my employees saw the benefit of me being there, we were able to find the budget for subsequent years, and now I'm on the board. So I'm really glad I volunteered all those years ago.
Yeah, it's kind of the picture perfect journey that you've gone on, isn't it? From volunteer to onto the board. I don't want to keep you guys too much longer, because I know we all have places to be or dogs to look after. But I just wanted to ask finally, I suppose what advice you would have to someone, I suppose, on both sides of it. So someone who feels they have the talent or is approaching the talent and doesn't feel that they're being recognized. But also what you would say to the other side of it, an organization that how do we encourage them to diversify and find the best talent and open it up a bit? What would you say to those two groups of people?
For the people who feel like they're not being noticed, you have to put yourself out there. You can't wait for other people to celebrate it and to do it, because maybe they're doing it for themselves, or they're quite rightly getting on there and doing their work. So find those platforms where you can celebrate and share, but also make sure that you're celebrating and sharing other people. And if you think that you have a brilliant idea, then just put it out there. Social media is a fantastic platform for it. Blogging and being involved in other people's podcasts is a great way to get that out there. And soon you will start to see it building up. And I forgot your other question, Simon. What was it?
It was to the other side of people. So the organizations and the managers and the trustees and the CEOs, what kind of word of advice would you give to them to open it up and bring in this new talent or encourage this new talent?
Involve them in the conversations. What do they want? What are they looking for? And how can we work together to make it a partnership in getting this right, rather than it's down to them or it's down to you? Let's do it together, because that's where we can be strongest.
Nice. Joe?
So I think organizations need to see this as mission critical. So it's not a nice to have. If you've got a bit of budget left at the end of the year, we can send some people on some training. I think it needs to be a board level imperative to invest in our people, because if we don't have the talent to deliver on our mission, then our mission isn't going to get delivered. And so I think unless it starts on the board agenda, on the as a goal in the strategy, it's not going to flow through in terms of investment and prioritization and support, and it needs to be seen as integral to the work of the organization. And I agree with Nikki. I think for anyone from the other side, you need to push up and out. So create the space in your organization for that conversation, whatever size it is. Be proactive. One of the things I've seen repeatedly in organizations is the individuals who then create working groups or informal networks in the organization to put this stuff on the agenda. Repeatedly, I've seen some of the best work on diversity coming out of staff groups, putting that forward to the senior management rather than the other way around. And use the potential of social media to get connected. I think the opportunities today to reach out to people to learn and share and coach and mentor is great. And one of the real strengths of our sector is people's willingness to engage with each other. So make the most of it, because that's free and can be life changing.
Absolutely. And I feel like in my career, that's definitely been it. When I put myself forward to people and connect with people, we're a very helpful sector. People are generous with their time and advice, and it's a great way to get ahead. So if people want to connect with you guys, I know you're probably inundated, but where can they find you? Joe, where's the best place to find you online?
I spend far too much time on Twitter, so if you go there, you'll probably see me and my puppy, and you can find me at Mr. Joe Jenkins, and I am always happy to hear from people.
At Mr. Joe Jenkins. And Joe, every one of your profile pictures, you always look like a completely different person. Are you just evolving very quickly, or what's happening?
Keeping it fresh.
Keeping it fresh. Nice. And Ms. Nikki Bell, where do we find you online, as if we didn't already know?
Yes, so I'm on Twitter at Charity Nikki. I do have a cat, so maybe I'm going to start featuring him more in my pictures. So Joe, you might have a bit of competition there. And also my writings on charitynikki.blog as well, if anyone wants to have a peruse on there, find out what I've been getting up to.
Very good. Yeah. Have your cat and dog ever met?
No,
I mean, there's a distance and also rival issue, not between me and Joe.
Yeah.
The cats are fine.
And my last question I want to ask you guys, if you started a band with you two, what would the name of the band be?
Oh, I don't know. It would have to be dog related, sure, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it'd have to be. Yeah.
Maybe it could just be Axel. That's a strong band name.
What's Axel? Yeah. Your dog's name?
Axel Rose.
Oh, nice. AXL?
Yeah.
Nice. That's a good dog name. What's your cat's name?
Marmaduke.
Axel Marmaduke. Yeah, you're really coming from different worlds here.
Yeah.
Maybe
that's going to be the evening entertainment at convention next year.
Yeah. You should make it dog and cat friendly. That'd be really good.
Yeah. What instruments would you play?
Me? I'm on banjo. No, okay. Ukulele. I'll be ukulele. You're on drums. Joe is singing. Joe's Vox.
Yeah, I can rap.
Oh, nice.
What?
Okay.
Oh, amazing. Right,
okay, that's the next podcast. So tune in next time and Joe will rap. But listen, thanks a million, guys. Really lovely to see you and hear from you, and great to get those opinions. You guys are fantastic. And anyone who's listening, please do go and follow them, because they put out good stuff, good helpful stuff all the time. Have a good rest of your day, and thank you so much again, Nikki and Joe.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to Simon Scriver's Amazingly Ultimate Fundraising Superstar podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and head over to changefundraising.com to learn more or get in touch with Simon. Or don't. whatever, you're big enough to make your own decisions.
Hello, this is Morgan Freeman. For discounts on Simon's best-selling online fundraising courses, go to www.changefundraising.com/training and use coupon code podcast. Complete them in your own time, wherever you want. Get busy living or get busy buying.